Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast, your weekly dose of knife news and information about knives and knife collecting. Here's your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco.
Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast. I'm Bob DeMarco. On this edition of the show, I'm speaking with Lance Strahl of Ironwood Outfitters. I was introduced to Lance at Blade Show this year by Matt Chase of Hogtooth Knives, who had nothing but good things to say about the blades and the maker at the Ironwood Outfitters table. This to me was a ringing endorsement of the quality of Lance's cutlery, but when I had a chance to take a close look for myself, I was taken in by the seamless blending of adventuring blades with fighting knives. His catalog of designs is quite varied, with material choices that range the gamut, but it all seems to fit together into one unique vision. We'll meet Lance and discover Ironwood Outfitters knives for ourselves, but first be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and download the show to your favorite podcast app. That way you can listen on the go. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by going to Patreon, TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon, or scan the QR code on your screen. And I will add that if you sign up for one whole year, you save 12%. So go check it out at TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon. Lance, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. So I don't know much about you. I know the knives I saw on your table, and we had a chance to talk just for a few minutes because we met in the waning minutes of Blade Show this year. But I think I got it right when I said, besides your culinary knives, which I just discovered, you kind of walk this tightrope between adventure knives and fighting knives. How did this all start for you?
Sure. So I've always been into knives. I was a Boy Scout as a kid, and whenever we'd go camping, my dad would let me, go to the little KOA camp store and pick out a knife. And years ago, we were in Alaska with my family, and on the side of the road, there's a little shop called I'd Rather Be Independent Knives on the Seward Highway there. And I got my parents to stop, and we went inside. Guys were making knives. I was like, people don't make knives, right? Like, everything comes out of some little camp store or whatever. This is incredible. And so I ended up buying one of the knives. I've actually got the first custom knife I ever got. It's this one right here. And ended up going to Yellowstone the following year. And I didn't realize everything at Yellowstone is going to cost, 4 or 5x. And I was like, well, man, I bet I can make knives for less than that. And so, years of buying and collecting tools and designing knives and stuff later. Yeah, most of the knives I make are under $700-800. But I just, I just decided, well, I'd rather make my own. And so I built a little forge with some bricks and charcoal and a hair dryer in the backyard, and started just rough grinding stuff to shape and heat treating it that way. And just kept expanding over the last 15, 16 years.
Well, who taught you this? How did you learn to make a forge like that?
So there's a book, I can't remember the name of the author now, but called The $50 Knife Shop. Back in the day, we would could go to Barnes & Noble and Borders and find anything you wanted. And I picked up a couple books on knife making there. Wayne Goddard, that's who it is, I believe. Wayne Goddard's $50 Knife Shop. And that was where I got most of it from. It really wasn't until years later as an adult that I started to meet other makers and become part of that community, and, have other people to learn from. For most of the first 5, 6, 7 years of making knives, it was that book and Bob Loveless's on knife making, and that was about it. So I just kind of kept pushing forward and trying new things until stuff would turn out right, and take that little win and keep going from there.
Of the many self-taught knife makers I've spoken with, a lot of people mention the $50 knife maker. That's a very famous one. But most people reference YouTube. YouTube videos taught me. This is the first time I've heard someone say books.
Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Well, I was always a big reader as a kid, and I want to say, let's see, this would have been 18 years ago at this point. YouTube didn't have the content that it does now. I mean, nowadays, yeah, if there's something I can't find, I probably will look on YouTube before I call somebody and ask. But yeah, even today, I'll still reference Loveless's work to try and figure out a problem first. There's so many greats that came before the YouTube era that we really don't have much on film or much recorded from, but a lot of those guys wrote books. Some of them are hard to find, but there's a lot of great traditional craft skills out there.
So when was it that you sort of matured into this, and how did that happen?
So I would say probably about 6 years ago, once I was, had a nice job, had a little more stable house with a basement that I could build a shop in. I started investing in more equipment, better equipment, and really trying to hone my skills now that I wasn't renting a house with 3 buddies and I had this much garage to try and wedge my tools in and not spray metal on their cars. Let me tell you, people don't like that. I was able to really start investing in that and developing more of my skills, being able to try new things, putting in a 2x72 grinder, going from heat treating with a pipe tuve style forge to heat treating with an electric kiln, and just expanding what my capabilities were, as well as thinking more about the design intentionally, instead of going, oh, I saw this, let's copy that. Oh, I saw, this, let's do something with that. Think more about, okay, I like what they've done there, but how can I make this my own? Like, I like that blade from here, but I want to do, that handle different. And, I think we could change up how the grind is. And so once I started doing that, I started really finding that my style is a bit hard to pin down. But even in a lot of the culinary stuff I do, it's always been focused on some element of the outdoors, some part of, getting out there and being part of nature. I mean, even the two I've got right in front of me here, very different in a lot of ways. We're talking a modern synthetic. This is grip tech for the handle. Stainless steel compound ground Tonto. This one is going to be high, bring it back in the light here, high carbon steel with some curly maple that I used Aqua Fortis to finish, which is how they did the traditional Kentucky long rifles. So it really doesn't seem like there's a lot in common between these two pieces, but even the blue on this is I want to make something that'd be a great, fishing companion knife. You don't really think of a Tonto for that, but just something that reminded me of the water, reminded me of getting out on the beach and fishing growing up. And this one, again, more traditional, but still that the handle's taken from a Kentucky long rifle. So it's all about just finding a connection with it.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's cool that handle was salvaged from a Kentucky long rifle.
Well, so the maple on here is not salvaged from a long rifle. The technique is what goes back to that. It's about early 1700s. They started using a process called Aqua Fortis, which is taking your curly maple and then dissolving iron filings in acid, painting that on, and then hitting it with a torch or a hot iron. Both protects the wood and gives it a really nice curl and color to it.
I happen to be reading The Revenant right now,
Yeah.
and Hugh Glass has one of those rifles, a Kentucky, I can't remember what year it was, rifle, and I had to look it up, and it was really cool. So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that process. But anyway, you were saying that it's hard to nail down your style. How would you describe your style if you had to?
That's a good question. I would say a lot of Florida, dash to the Southwest, and all functional. Every piece I make, I expect to be used. I don't really make wall hangers. I don't really make anything that I wouldn't expect somebody to cut with. And everything I make is optimized to that purpose. Yeah, I do fancier stuff. You saw this one at the show.
Oh, yeah.
The big Western fighter here. But I wouldn't sell it if I didn't think you couldn't actually use it for that. Now, God willing, you wouldn't have to, but even something like this, I expect somebody to go out and cut with, to chop with. And so I think I make everything with that first. And then from there, where the design aesthetics, what can we do that's going to be fun or playful with it?
So utility is the through line, whether it's a more of a fighter like your Shrike double edge. To me, that's a little self-defense knife, or this Western fighter, you called it?
Western fighter.
Western fighter. But even the more outdoors knives, those are utilitarian, and then you go all the way to kitchen knives, also utilitarian. So that's a fine theme. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
In terms of style, they're all things that are to be used. Hold up that fighter again, if you would, since it's fresh in our minds. Yeah, I remember this one, and I saw it on your website today when I was just brushing up, and I love that. I love the shape of that Bowie. I love the large choil, and it reminds me oddly of a movie knife. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. But it's not. Okay. It's more modern than that. But
okay.
I like that. I like that a lot. So let's go back to the house. You got your own house, and you're no longer wedged in a garage that you're sharing with three buddies. So are you still forging at this point? You're in the basement. Are you forging down there?
So everything I'm doing at that point forward is stock removal. So I use, I would say, about half stainless and half high carbon steel. The high carbon varies based on purpose. Again, the stainless pretty much all nitro V. But what kept me away from forging and pushing more towards stock removal is the basement I was in was about 180 years old. And I figured an open propane forge down there was probably not the best safety choice. Versus having an electric kiln was a much better option. It gave me more of that flexibility working with something like a Nitro V, which is great, especially for, again, it's somebody that loves fishing, somebody who grew up in Florida around the saltwater, being able to make stuff that I'm going to use for that too, as opposed to, 8670 and, A2 and whatnot will hold up all right to that if you take care of them. But they're really not designed for that purpose.
Right.
So moving into being able to buy steel by the sheet and precisely control temperature for it was a big help in being able to expand the offerings, expand, I guess, what my focus is for the knives, but also was a safety choice for that shop.
Gotcha. What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. Like in a way, you have to learn how to do things so that you don't burn down the house.
Yeah, well, that would not have gone well.
What are people calling for more when they're looking at an Ironwood Outfitters knife? Do they want the stainless or do they want the high carbon?
So it's been a pretty decent mix. Honestly, as far as what I've been seeing, as far as what people want, really is either the smaller, and I'd love to show you one of my wrapped pieces, but actually now I do have one left.
Oh, good.
So something more like this right here. So traditional wrapped, smaller size. This is the only one I've got left after blade, or stuff in mammoth ivory really have been the two biggest things people have wanted. The steel choice has been more of a necessity for folks if they want something specifically for a saltwater environment versus, up here in Virginia, hunting and camping, it's not as big of a concern.
So between a Japanese style wrap and
mammoth ivory,
that's quite a spread there.
Yeah, I just had a customer come by yesterday. What I've been doing since blade, I don't have any new knives to show you. Well, I got one new one to show you in a minute, but had a really good customer that wanted a set of ivory grips for his 1911 to match a knife I did for him. And so I used to make a lot of those. I haven't as much anymore, but it's a good customer. So I was like, all right, I'll make you a set. And they turned out gorgeous. It went really well. He actually had found a 1911 that had a finish that was a SIG that was very close to the finish on the knife I'd done for him. So came out as a pretty nice match set.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I mean, that's you're the most stylish guy in the apocalypse with that, that setup. So very good customer. You said, how did this happen that you were making knives and you started accumulating customers?
So a lot of it in the very early days was word of mouth, of course, just friends of friends, people who knew folks, giving away knives to friends and family. People would see them and want another one. During the pandemic, Instagram was way different than it is now. And so I was actually picking up a lot of customers that way. And since they've put a little more restrictions on that, it's gone back to a lot more word of mouth, just hustling, going to shows when I can. And thankfully I've had a lot of repeat business too, which has kept stuff afloat. So.
Yeah, because it seems like that can be a really hard part of any business, but especially one where you're hand making a kind of a specialty item. People, most civilians, so to speak, non-knife guys don't think of, spending money or seeking that out. So building up a customer base could be difficult.
Yeah, and I've thought about, I know there's a lot of great shops out there that carry knives. I've only really worked with one dealer, Howling Dog, who you met at Blade, mostly because, I don't make, for the most part, 20 of the same knife. I don't do a run of, we're going to do 10 of these in black, 10 of these in blue, 10 of these in red. Right. And I'm just going to sit there and grind the same thing every day till my eyes bulge out. Because every piece I make is different, I've really tried to cater more towards meeting my customers where they are and showing off, hey, I can do this interesting thing, or I can do this interesting thing. If you like what you see, great. If not, I'll make exactly what you want. And you can see what I do, so I can do it.
So when you say that, I can make you exactly what you want. This is a custom knife in the most pure sense of the word, then.
Yeah. If you said you liked the Shrike handle, but you wanted a Tonto blade, it'd take a little longer than just ordering a Shrike off the website, but yeah, I'll do it. I like the customer designs that come in that aren't necessarily in line exactly with what I do. Because it's a great exercise. It's a great, way to challenge your brain and skills as far as coming up with a new design to someone else's ideas, but also maybe doing something you hadn't thought of before. Yeah. And then figuring out how to do it.
Do you have anything in your catalog that was inspired or started off as someone else's idea that you repeat, that you make over and over?
If you go back up the top corner there, the top left one, I've actually got a different version of that same one here.
Oh, sweet.
This is one I do make occasionally. This is a Loveless style knife in a lot of ways. You've got the tapered tang with the red liners. And this one, it's almost exactly with the micarta there. Soldered guard, hollow ground. But where it differs is that this is a clip point. Loveless did a lot of things, a lot of really amazing knives. I'm not sure I ever saw the clip point that he made. And how it came about was in my knife making classes, we had one of my buddies really wanted to take a design I had, what we were making the class knife, and make it a clip point. And so I modified it for him on the spot. And then I was like, well, I like the idea. I like where this is going. Let's roll with it. And so I made more of a Loveless style. It had bolsters rather than guards. It wasn't a tapered tang. I was like, all right, this is getting in a direction of something I want to go. And as someone who, again, like I said, one of the first knife making books I had was Bob Loveless's. I was like, well, let's push this to the limit of sort of that style, but retain the clip point. And so that's the one you see there.
And tell people what that's called.
This is my Loveless Rancher.
That is beautiful. Yeah, that's a great name for that knife. That's it's got the Western feel with the clip point.
Yeah,
and it's got that Loveless style handle. Let me see that sheath while you're
yeah, sure. There you go. Cool. Just a nice, fairly simple leather sheath. This is, I got it in there a little off, but there we go. There we go. So this is, again, more the Loveless style way of doing a sheath with the liner going up to where your guard is. Just a nice polished edge on it.
So you do all the leather yourself?
Yep. Everything's in-house. That's one of the next things I want to tackle and want to work on more, is, improving my sheaths. I don't make bad sheaths, but everything's simple and straightforward. The one on the Western Fighter is a little more elaborate. This one's a slightly more recent one. But again, just going in that vein and trying to make a little better, a little more elaborate sheaths. And it's something I haven't put as much focus on just because like making knives, like grinding knives. Hand stitching leather is a little less exciting for me.
Yeah, so. I would imagine. It also seems like it's taxing on the hands. That and also the Japanese wrapping seems like it.
Yeah, so that's once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. You're pulling it pretty tight. If you're talking something on the smaller side, 15-20 minutes, it's really not that bad. Bigger piece, yeah, you just keep clamps handy so you can take a break.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned classes. You teach classes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. How did you start? Why did you start teaching classes?
Sure. So a few years ago, a friend and good customer reached out and was like, hey, I want to do something really fun for my daughter's birthday. She really likes your knives. He'd gotten her one as well. He's like, would you ever consider teaching a class? And my first thought was, well, I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if I'm qualified for that, but I was like, all right, let me see if I can put a syllabus together. let me see if I can come up with something that I think would be good in a reasonable amount of time. Condense it down to 2 days, and figure out how we can get you from the barest minimum I felt comfortable that we could start at, up to a functional knife by the time we leave. And I limit it to 3 people for that reason. I don't have a big shop. I don't have 6 or 8 grinders along the wall, so we're not packing folks in there. But yeah, so I sat down, I went through it. I was like, all right, I think I can do this. The first 2 classes were all just good friends, pretty much. So it's a good test audience. And some people, I'm always willing to offer people as much or as little help as they want. Some folks want to do it all themselves, no hands-on. And some folks I've showed them how to do it. They've taken 1 or 2 passes and been like, all right, can you help? Can you do this? And it's like, all right, that's not why you're here, but if you want me to, I will. So it's just something that's grown and developed. I really haven't been doing them as much this past year, just because of time. It's 2 days, it's a weekend for me. So I haven't done as much lately, but it's something I'll probably start doing as we get near the end of the summer into fall here.
Well, that's it seems like a great service for you to offer, especially considering you kind of scratched together your knowledge and your skills when you started. This is a good way to give someone a head start in a way.
Yeah, it's great to show. I would say most people are there for fun. I don't know how many people take it up afterwards, but it's great to give people, an opportunity to start on the right foot and hopefully influence some of them to keep going with it. I know for me, it would have been great to have something like this around when I was getting started. And it really, what matters to me is seeing how much people enjoy it. We have just as many, housewives as we do machinists taking the class. So you have people that are great with tools and people that have never touched tools. And especially with the folks that don't have the experience, seeing them get really excited about, especially the last day finishing it and be like, I did this. That's the rewarding part for it.
So do you, when you have classes like this, do you prescribe what knives they're going to make? Do you keep it in a simple shop, in a small envelope?
Yeah. Actually, I do have one of the class knives here. But it's cool. Further away. I didn't know we were gonna. There we go. Sorry, I know that's bad television. But this model right here, this is what we switched over to using for the class, just because it's something. I was doing something a little bit bigger for the first couple, and it was just taking too long to finish grind them. So this is what we're doing now. It's a nice, simple, mid-sized knife that's easy to carry, fairly easy to make. There's nothing complex about grinding this blade. You're not having to work out any of the geometry as you go, and it's just a good all-around knife. So it gives something people will hopefully use when they're done. We're not making Bowies that, cool, mom's going to go home and put this on the wall. She's not going to use it. But this is something, somebody could use in their garden. It's not, somebody could use it in the kitchen if they really wanted to. It's not some big imposing weapon. Yeah. It's just sort of nice, everyday size knife.
So do you find that well, let's see, that's a loaded question. I was going to, what do you think the most difficult aspect of knife making is for someone who walks in off the street and is making their first knife with you?
The thing people struggle with the most is grinding. You've got a belt that on the slow end is going about 1,000 surface feet per minute. with 60 grit sandpaper trying to grab the knife and yank it out of your hands, and you have to keep it steady and at the same angle through the entire cut. So it's definitely the most skill-oriented part of the class, I would say. Once you get to more complex shapes, more complex knives, there's definitely other things that I still, struggle with and go back on a couple times. But for making something like that, it's a fairly simple pattern. Definitely the grinding and not burning your fingers.
Yeah.
You're running it on there pretty hot. We got the dunk bucket there. We've got the mister. Try and keep it as cool as we can, but it's just something you got to get used to.
So let's talk about design for a minute. Like you were saying before, you've got a wide variety of designs. The Tonto to me sticks out in a cool way because it's unexpected, especially for an outdoorsy style knife.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that that's kind of strange since Americanized Tontos like that have become so famous over the last 40, 30 years, something like that. They seem extremely useful in the outdoors or anywhere else. Tell me how you design a knife from the idea to actually making it. Do you draft things out on paper? Do you have a preconceived notion? How's that work?
Sure. So I think a lot of it goes to how any of it starts is going to be something I have an idea in my head, just something that's sort of tickling at my brain a little bit of this could be interesting. This could be different. Something I've kind of seen before, but it's not quite right. And then I'll go basically look at a bunch of knives, scroll through Instagram, scroll through wherever, and try and bring that idea in a little more cohesively, find some other elements to pepper in there, make sure that, oh, I know why I like this. I saw so-and-so make it. Like, you don't want to do that. So do the research in terms of, what design elements are out there, what haven't I thought of, what has someone else already thought of that I don't want to replicate. And then I'll sit down. I use Fusion 360. I used to draw everything on paper, and it's just not good. I can't draw to save my life. The irony being my dad was and my brother is professional artists, so I should be able to, but I can't draw to save my life. So I use Fusion 360, and it allows me to sort of sculpt in 3D space what I have in my head, and I'll just sit there and play with it till the lines seem right. And that could be, that could be 20 minutes. That could be days, weeks of just sitting there iterating, walking away from it, coming back to it, walking away from it, coming back to it, until it just seems right. And then I'll print it out as a drawing and usually put it on a thicker piece of cardboard or a thinner piece of wood and cut that out exactly the shape and just see how it feels, see is the handle right. Because I can run the math, I can know about, hey, handle should be about, 3.75 to about 4.25 seems to be kind of the sweet spot. But then maybe you put a little curve at the back of it just to add some more grip, and now it's too small because now it's pulling your hand in more. I think this one does a little bit. So adding something like that at the back instead of the handle on the Tonto here. These are pretty close to the same, but the Tonto is going to feel a little bit bigger in the hand because you don't have anything pulling your hand in, versus this guy here. It's going to feel a little smaller in the hand because this is a curved surface, and so that's pushing into your hand. It's going to have more retention, but so I'll print it out and make sure it's not going to be end up being cartoonishly large. It's not going to be too small. And then I will go ahead and, cut it out of steel run a prototype of it, usually in 1/8 inch stock, regardless of how big it's going to be. Just because if you're doing something like this and it's, 1/4 inch, it's going to take a long time to grind. And I don't want to find out it's a crappy design after 4 hours of grinding. So I'll usually run it off in 1/8 inch. And if it's good, if it's something I like, then I'll decide what steel it's going to be and what fits best for the design, and make however many I'm feeling. Could be 1 or 2, could be something like the Shrike. I think I've made that first batch, including the large ones, is 8 or so. I usually don't get into having stuff laser cut or water jet, just because I'm usually not running big enough batches. For the collaboration pieces I've done, those have all been water jet, just because I was not going to grind 25 knives to shape and cut them out on a bandsaw and then grind them in the rest of the way. That was going to take half the production time. And because both my partners on those are sheath makers, that was going to be hard on them, because even if I'm making the sheets one at a time, great. If there's a little inconsistency, like it's the same design, but it's a little thinner at this dimension, it doesn't make a difference. If I'm sending one as a prototype to my sheath maker and he's trying to work on it consecutively, they all have to be exactly the same.
Right. Well, since we're there, actually, you're talking about that cool looking clip point chef's knife, the Arizona Chef or something. Is that?
Yeah. So that was one of them. The Arizona Chef was one I did with Lifetime Leatherworks. That was he wanted to go bigger than what I normally do on chefs. So I believe that one was a 10-inch blade. And what steel we ended up using for those. It was not something I normally chosen for. I can't remember off the top of my head now. Yeah, that was one I did with Ty out at Lifetime Leather. Just happened to be talking to him one day about a pot handle for a cast iron pot. He does leather ones of those. We started talking knives, and he's a big chef. And so he's like, well, what if we did these for the site? And I was like, all right, we can do that. So those turned out really cool, and he knocked the sheets out of the park on those. I think for him being out in the Southwest, the handle on those, the rich light that we went with, really worked well.
What was the design inspiration for that?
So he wanted something like my 8-inch K-tip chef here. We wanted something in this vein, but he wanted something bigger, a little more stretched out than what would be a little more traditional K-tip shape. So basically, I just kind of took this design, brought the point up to more of a Western point. In this case, Western versus Eastern, meaning chef's knife style. Gotcha. Retained the handle for the most part. I got rid of a little bit of the finger groove. And just sort of stretched it out. And he wanted to go with something that was, again, more that Southwest, a little more rustic. So we did do the stone washed blades on those. And then we went with I believe the desert is the color that they call that, rich light. Rich light's like a paper micarta material. And they're out in Arizona, and so it really matched with what the landscape is there.
So what is the main challenge of making a chef's knife, and when did you start making chef's knives?
So my wife talked me into making chef's knives, is how we got there. She wanted a knife to cut the cake at our wedding with, and then wanted it to be functional as well, not just one of those gimmick cake cutting knives that you see a lot of. And so like, all right, well, what's what's something that would be that she would use a lot of, or get a lot of use out of, and it was also different. So I went with the K-tip design because it's a very functional design. It's somewhere between the Western and Eastern styles. And that, again, with the handles on the ones I do, somewhere between the Western and Eastern styles, sort of a fusion of the two. And for that one, for her wedding knife, that one has Cuban mahogany, ivory, and blue true stone on it. So like, or turquoise true stone on it. And a friend saw that and was like, well, I want one of those. I was like, well, let's see. So I changed up the handle on it a bit, changed up some of the material choices. And more people were like, well, could you do something maybe for like barbecuing? I was like, yeah, okay, I can do a barbecue knife, sure. And so it expanded into, you saw a decent portion of the collection of styles I do for chef's knives, but I have made barbecue forks. I've made like the actual meat scimitars. It's always one of those evolving things of, hey, I saw some guy doing XYZ with whatever. Can you make that? It's like, yeah, I think I can do that. And so just continuing to expand down that road.
So describing your wife's knife's handle, and then talking about rich light and talking about the other kind of the wraps. You use a very wide variety of materials in all these knives, also to include the sheaths, kydex and leather. And so what inspires you to use all that, such a wide variety of stuff? A lot of people get kind of used to a certain kind of material in terms of the design and also in terms of working with it.
Sure. So I think for me, like I said before, I wouldn't want to grind the same knife 100 times and just put 3 different colored handles on it. I don't want to make the exact same handle over and over again because that's not interesting to me. And so I try and, make each one unique, make each one a little fun. Give you 2 examples on here. These are both same model knife, but very different handles. This is some green paper micarta with some vintage micarta here. This is some Osage with G10. And I was down in Key West, and I was like, well, I wonder what key lime pie would look like as a knife handle. And this one was Shark Week was on last year. They had some awesome 80s colors for a promo. And I was like, well, I wonder how I could, incorporate that into a knife handle. Felt it had the same sort of Florida vibes. So I used the same model of knife for both. But for me, it's always just a lot of it's I'll see something cool and be like, hey, I want to try and do that, try and incorporate that somehow. Or in the case of something like these 2 Trapper models here, the overall model itself to me always kind of had a rustic frontier vibe. That was kind of what I was creating it for, what I was going for. And so more of a Southwest feel for the handles always just kind of appealed to me. Just to me, that was what fit for it. And for this one actually is some Southwest kydex for the sheath too. I've never been afraid of trying new handle materials. I find that 90% of everything works like something else you've used before. Most mammoth ivory, and I haven't used mammoth molar, I'll say that. No one's ever worn that, and I've heard it's very cracky and chippy. But most mammoth ivory works a lot like a bit harder G10 because it's all fully epoxy impregnated at this point. so it works fairly predictably. Your paper micartas work, again, also like a bit harder G10. They can just burn. There's so many of the same elements in everything, different woods at with different densities, work. It's nothing that's going to be unpredictable in the sense where I feel like, hey, this might fail because I don't know how the material is going to work. There's definitely some stuff that's been more challenging. There's definitely some it's going to be a learning experience, but it's one of those things, use sharp belts and go slow when in doubt.
If you would pick up the knife that had the Osage handle and tell me about this. Yeah, that one.
The trap, this one right here?
The one that you were showing, the Osage orange handle.
So these are actually both Osage.
Oh, okay.
I do use a lot of Osage.
Well, I want the one in with the purple sheath.
Purple sheath, all right.
Yeah, I saw this model a lot on your site, and I want to talk about the model. But first, I have a question, and as I know, Osage is a really hard wood. It's I have a beautiful limb of it around here that I've been noodling with for a long time, and then the G10, presumably that's G10 in the middle, purple.
Yeah, the purple.
A lot softer. Is that difficult to work with materials of different density across the same handle slab?
Yeah, so it does present some challenges. It's worse if you're talking about something like a micarta, especially like a heavy canvas micarta that really doesn't want to work down, and something that's a softer material. Another piece I picked up from Bob Loveless's book, actually. But what I'll generally do on something like this is I'll work it down on the grinder to about 85%, 90%. And you'll sometimes will get like little ripples, or it won't quite meet up where you want it to. But what Bob Loveless recommended in his book, funny enough, was backing your sandpaper with a heavy piece of boot sole leather. And that just sort of rides over. It allows you to work like you have essentially a platen, like a hard sanding stick type surface, but it's flexible enough to curve around the contours of the material. In the sense, when I say the contours, as in wrapping this way. So any low spots, it's just gliding over. It's not getting sucked down into them like it would if you were just using the sandpaper by hand. And that really helps you eliminate those low spots. It's also great when you're working with a softer material with something like brass or stainless steel for your pins. You've got to be a little more careful when you're doing on the grinder with that. But again, it'll only hit those high spots. It isn't going to dig into those valleys. And it's a really nice way to get a nice, smooth, even finish.
Right, because if you're gripping a piece of sandpaper, or I've on occasion like put a piece of tape on the back of sandpaper, it still is going to dive down into whatever's deeper there, and man, that's frustrating. Pick up that knife, if you will, and tell us about this model. I think it's
so this specific one is the conch. This is the mid-size one of the three I did. Again, this one being inspired by Florida. Got a bit of a shark fin here, sort of a shark tooth design. And then look here, we got a fish. An actual fish in the design. So I did this one, which is the mid-size one, which I thought was the most EDC friendly one. A much larger one that was more on the size of like the Western Fighter, and a smaller one, again, more along the size of like the Fusion here. And I'm sold out on the other two sizes, but I do have a couple of the mid-size ones left. So just a nice, this is one where it's more all around kind of playful. Most of them don't have that many hidden elements in there. Most of them are pretty straightforward, just ergonomic. But this is one where I was like, it's going to go all in on just having a fun design project there.
And all the colors and stuff you have in that also kind of seem like tropical fish kind of things you'd see under the ocean, under the surface of the water. On the trapper that you were holding up, the sort of southwestern style, you got that Mexican blanket, or on the other one
on the other one, the Mexican blanket.
That's a beauty. So tell us about the trapper.
So this is one, I wanted to make a nice, thin, lightweight model that you could carry for everyday use, but would be a good outdoor knife with a good blade shape for that sort of work. Something you could clean small game with, and hence the name of the trapper. So these all actually have tapered tangs as well. I want to try and pull as much weight out of them as I could without skeletonizing or doing something else to sacrifice the strength of it. And then I did it in 2 different blade shapes, which comes down to more personal preference, although something like this here is going to be a little bit better for skinning. But just wanted to go with some different options there. And then
one's more of a drop,
both are tapered.
More of a spear point. Sorry to interrupt you. One's
no worries. No, go ahead.
In case people are just listening.
Okay.
I'm stepping all over your words, but you've got one that's a drop point and one that's a spear point. And I think I see what you mean about the drop point would be a better skinner.
Yeah, you got a lot more belly to the blade there. But both of them are hollow ground to a fairly fine edge, so that they'd be excellent slicing knives, again, without giving too much up in terms of rigidity.
So which is your best seller?
Best selling knife I've got is something I actually don't have with me, because I'm out of them. But the little mini Tontos that I've done, about the same size as the Fusion I was showing you earlier. About this size, compound ground. All of them have been wrapped. If I bring them out, we sell out of them. It's just an inexpensive, fun little American Tonto knife. About this size, a nice little pocket piece. That's the thing that's, consistently, wherever we go, whatever we do, those are always sold out right away. Of the bigger pieces, the things I consider a little more practical, a little more useful. The Scout 2.0 that we make for the class has been really popular as well. Yeah, that's just, again, a good all-around functional knife.
So you just alluded to, and you mentioned earlier, shows. Now, is this how you've been able to cultivate your business?
Yeah, it's definitely been part of it. This was the first year I'd actually been to Blade Show. I think, at the end of the day, no matter what, as an artist, craftsman, everybody's got a little bit of that imposter syndrome of it's not quite ready yet. I'm not quite ready yet. And so I'd held off until Trevor and his wife Sabrina from Howling Dog this year were like, hey, you should come out with us, share some table space. It'll be a good time. So this is the first time doing that. And it was a great experience. But in general, I've done a lot more the local regional shows. And, it's definitely been a good way to get sales. I think the best way to spread the customer base has really been, again, through word of mouth, through working with local shops. We've got a great woodworking shop here in town. They've got a big warehouse. They have a membership plan. That's where I get all my exotic hardwood. And so they have some of my knife showcase stuff there. And then again, doing community events around here, working with some of the local charities, some of the local veterans groups, has really been the biggest recurring long-term driver. Because, you go to even you go to one of the big gun shows, you might sell 8-10 knives, but to just people walking, for the most part, not everybody, just people walking past go, oh, that's cool. Well, I came here with disposable cash, so I'll buy it. But not necessarily someone that's interested in, hey, what's the story? Why did you do this? Like, what are the materials? Why does that matter? And really having that interaction. Sometimes you get to, and it's fantastic. But that's definitely a lot less common than someone questioning how many times you folded your steel. For shows have been great as far as business drivers, but as far as the long-term keeping the business going, getting to keep doing this, it's always been about, customer attention and word of mouth.
So did you learn at Blade Show Atlanta this year that you're not an imposter? What did you come away with from that experience?
I would say I learned that the community was a lot more opening and inviting than I had expected. You alluded to Matt introducing us earlier. I had met Matt that Friday. We had a mutual friend. He's a former Scout sniper. When I worked in a previous job, I worked closely with the Scout Sniper Schoolhouse at Quantico, as well as through rugby and some other things. Being in the area, I know a lot of the guys in that community. So I walked up and I was like, hey, I think we have a mutual friend. Turns out we do have a good mutual friend. And he was like, come out to the bar with us later. And so that night went down to the pit with those guys, met Brian from FD Leatherworks, James from Wasteland Forge, introduced me to Jimmy, and just had a great time. Hung out with those guys the rest of the weekend. Came away with invitations to go learn forging from them, and invitations to Jimmy's house in Montana. And so just a great group of guys. And I think that was honestly the biggest takeaway, more than selling knives, more than doing any of that, was just that being part of the community makes you part of that group. So,
all right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Please finish what you're going to say.
I say to sort of circle all the way back to your question. Yes, but not for the reason of selling knives.
Got you. It must have been good for you to see to see your knives stack up. Your knives are, what am I trying to say? You make beautiful knives, and they belonged in that room, next to all the other beautiful knives there. And that's got to feel good to know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was, as much as I don't do it, okay, we all like selling knives. As much as I do it, because I love making knives, and I'd keep doing it if I had the money to, and no one did pay me. But yeah, getting the validation of having knives sell there and having people interested from outside the community, just from the community of collectors. You inviting me on here was all, great validation of that I'm on the right track, at least.
So what's next for Ironwood Outfitters?
I think the next is, I had a lot of great takeaways from Blade Show as well, as far as what people liked, as far as what people were picking up, how they liked it in the hand, where we could improve on some of the models to make it more ergonomic. So I've got another batch that I'm getting started here pretty soon. And then probably if you see me there next year, I might have some forged pieces on the table. I don't know. So if they talk me into it, it might happen.
Back to your roots, back to the very beginning. All right, tell people how they can catch up with you, how they can buy your knives, where they can contact you?
Sure. So everything new is going to be on Ironwood_Outfitters on Instagram. Also on Facebook at Ironwood Outfitters, or you can go to my website, www.ironwoodoutfitters.com.
Awesome. Lance, thank you so much. Lance Strahl of Ironwood Outfitters. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Adventure Delivered, your monthly subscription for hand-picked outdoor, survival, EDC, and other cool gear from our expert team of outdoor professionals. TheKnifeJunkie.com/BattleBox.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Lance Strahl of Ironwood Outfitters. Check him out. He's a fellow Virginian, but also from out of state. Check him out, and really, like, he's got everything. He's got you covered. You like fighting knives like me? Check him out. You like kitchen knives like me? Check him out. Outdoor knives, some beautiful stuff. So ironwoodoutfitters.com. All right. Thanks for watching. For Jim, working his magic behind the switcher, I'm Bob DeMarco saying until next time, don't take dull for an answer.
Thanks for listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review at reviewthepodcast.com. For show notes for today's episode, additional resources, and to listen to past episodes, visit our website, TheKnifeJunkie.com. You can also watch our latest videos on YouTube at TheKnifeJunkie.com/YouTube.